Now, the Artist in Revolution commemoration was held in remembrance of the late Mthokozisi Ntumba in Braamfontein on Wednesday. Visual artist Ayanda Mabulu was part of that event and had with him a deactivated prop rifle. 2 students were arrested that very same day on allegations of being in possession of an unlicensed firearm, which Mabulu says was his rifle. To speak to us about art as a form of protest, we are now joined by Ayanda Mabulu himself, as well as his attorney Cyril Tabela, who joins us to explain the court proceedings. Gentlemen, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Ayanda, I'd like to start with you. Let's talk about what messages that you were trying to communicate here as you use art in the form of protest.
Good morning to the viewers and to you, sister. What we're trying to convey is and condemn at the same time is the police brutality against the unarmed students who risked their lives and went out there to protest for their rights, for free education, And you understand that, they went out there, protesting, peaceful protest and stuff, and one of them got shot, and then a working civilian got killed. So to condemn such act that's been happening since 1976 and before, we had to come with the instrument that has done the damage and to condemn the police brutality, which is the gun. So we had to be there with the gun so that we protest and talk to the people and condemn the instrument, which is the gun. So there was nothing wrong. The gun was decommissioned. It was part of the art that I do, and I've been using them for quite some time, even inserting in some of my performances. Yeah.
That instrument, that gun, was also at the center of a much deeper issue here, where we had students who were then arrested. Talk to us about that, Cyril.
Yeah. Good morning to you, Mpho, and the viewers out there. So, yes, indeed, the students were arrested with the said gun. So, but to me, and then to Ayanda and the other artists, we understand that that was not a real gun, and that was an artwork which belonged to a studio, a studio which also belonged to Ayanda. So those students were arrested from where they were concert for artists. They were taking the artwork back to the studio. So police were aware that it was not even a real gun. So, but because already they want to cover up whatsoever that they've done during the protest, so they have to come with something, and that was their golden opportunity to say, look here, we're not just fighting protesting students. These students are armed. And then we also heard that some of us were supplying students with guns when they are referring to the artwork. And then obviously they were arrested, and then my client called me, look, Cyril, my nephews are arrested, and then with the artwork. So can you come and assist? And then when I went to the police station, and then he was making statement, forcing him to make a statement to say, no, that artwork doesn't belong to him. But and then to him, he told them that it is artwork. Yeah. And then they must arrest him if they don't understand that it's an artwork and it's not a real gun. But they refused to arrest him. We were negotiating to say, arrest him, release the students. It's not, here is the owner of the gun that you are saying is a gun. So he's willing to testify, he's willing to be subjected to all legal proceedings. Arrest him. But they could not arrest him.
I suppose then, you were trying to communicate a very bold message in this regard. Art as a form of protest versus a very thin line where a crime has really been committed in the streets during this protest. A life has been lost. Yeah. How do you then differentiate the two, where you were trying to make a bold statement using, a firearm to convey your messaging?
When you talk to criminals, which is the police, when you talk to rats, hungry, filthy rats, which is the police, uneducated rats, which is the police, who doesn't know nothing about education and the importance of what the students are standing for, which is the police, you need to come because their ears are deaf. You're speaking to deaf ears. You need to come with what they're familiar with. If they're familiar with the baton because their motive is just to push violence, bring something that they will see with their eyes, now that fortunately they're not blind, and put it in front of them and tell them that the students that you're fighting against, that you're killing, are here armed with knowledge because they are highly knowledgeable and highly conscious and know what's important for them. These are part and parcel of the people who are part of your community as black rats, youth policemen. We bring something that they will see and identify with. But unfortunately, at this point, this gun is worthy to be condemned. The gun is from Syria. There's war in Syria. It was made in Israel. There's war in Israel. It was taken to be confirmed, and approved and decommissioned in the UK, in Britain, which is in which South Africa was its colony. And the gun had to be from a certain historical place with historical reference with what is happening right here in South Africa, which is the police brutality. It can't just be any gun. So hence we brought that gun there because we needed to bring something in which these deaf policemen identify with. So we know that a student, one of our people has been killed and student has been shot. So how do you now condemn something in voice, in song, to people who doesn't even care about that song, whose mandate is to just brutalize and criminalize black students who are fighting for their rights? You bring something that they understand. To say, hi, you are used in eating cake, here's cake, identify with it. We are saying with this cake, stop what you're doing because it's poisoning us. So now it's a gun. Stop doing this. We've been doing this since 1976. We've been in this. And now the students are now, and they understand that they have to come armed with knowledge and the book. But at the same time, they are forced to be unarmed and they are disarmed. And they understand that. And when they're disarmed, government and the police know that these students will be vulnerable. And when they're vulnerable, they are quickly going to be attacked and shot, and they become a statistics. And then what's next?
You speak about vulnerable students in this matter. So let's talk about the processes that followed. I mean, we know that this is a permanently deactivated, welded firearm, but there were processes, as you say, that you believe that police were trying to use it as an excuse, as they fall back, as they arrested those students. So what processes followed as they headed to the police station and called you in?
Yeah, the processes were simple. He made a statement, and then to allege that this is an artwork, he have to prove it. We went to police station with a proof and the certificate to say, no, look, it's an artwork. It's no longer a gun. It doesn't even work. What more do you want? They look at the certificate, which they never dispute. So then after, I forced the police. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and then I said, no, because we are done with the charging of the student. You have your own charge. You are saying you are charging them. Let's have the docket to court. Let me go and speak with the NPA. They will make a decision. I understand you have gathered your information, you have gathered the evidence, but you don't have a decision. The decision is with the NPA to decide whether to prosecute or not. Yes, they said no, they cannot go to to court, and because it was late. I said, it's late to who? They said, no, it's already 11. I said, but court, the court time, I know the court time, I work in court. They will work up until to 3:30. So I know they are prosecutors. I know this magistrate will hear this matter. Let's go there. So I have to talk to their senior to force them to take the file to court. And then when we went to court, honestly speaking, I engaged the NPA, who were willing to listen. And then they look at my submissions, and then they decided not to prosecute.
And what impact did this have on the students?
It impacted, when you are treated as a criminal and then they're saying you are armed, because I even went to the cells to talk to them, to calm them. So they were traumatized. And then they are mixed with some other criminals inside there. So some of them, they're saying, oh, you are armed with AK-47. It means you're a criminal, you're one of us. So it means you went there as a student, but now some other people are telling you that you are a criminal. So just imagine the trauma that they were going through. So they were even crying.
Yeah. Ayanda, just wrapping up with you, was it worth the trouble? Was it worth you coming out with this rifle to make your bold statement?
Yeah, it was very important. It was very important. And another thing, you need to understand that we're dealing with black students here who are too much of a threat. Bear in mind, they are meant not to be educated deliberately so that they form part and parcel of a cheap labor force. And whoever, the government, the education system and all of that, understand that if these students that are coming from a poor background get to be educated and know their place, they will question who's the master, and they will question the master. So they're trying to make sure that these students don't get education, they're not educated, so that they become part and parcel of the cheap labor force. And that on its own, it's an issue. And we are overlooking this issue. And constantly they've been dealt by the searing bullets and the guns. And that on its own, it's a threat, because a small child from Eastern Cape or from Limpopo who comes to Johannesburg knowing that it's a golden city and stuff, and I'm going to get opportunities and get educated, he is gun pointed with a gun and get shot. It's a threat. And that need to end. We need to condemn that thing. And how do you now condemn that thing? You tell the students, as into, you are well educated, you are coming here armed with the knowledge and the book. Teach these people, these uneducated, huge police who are in front of you. And another thing is this: these police don't even think, because they are the neighbors to these students that they're shooting. The only thing that they do, they're doing it just for the minimum wage. They dump.
And also, what sort of relation did you have with the learners that were arrested, the students that were arrested?
Yeah, the student that they arrested, it's my nephew and my niece. Yeah.
And you felt it important to come in and fight with them in their cause?
Yeah, it's very important, because they're students and they're black students, and I mean, the cause is important. You know, I cannot leave students at home and go and fight for other students, whereas the same students that are at home are affected by what is happening, because it's going to hit at home soon. And they were not there, and they're not part of it. So it's important that they become highly politically inclined. You know, it's part and parcel of the education, you know, to make sure that they are aware of what's happening there, and they go and join other students because they are affected by this too. Yeah.
And Cyril, just closing off with you, the charges against the students were dropped, and life goes on.
Yeah, I'll have to make some clarity that will shock you also. On Wednesday, the charges were withdrawn by NPA. We agreed, and then the processes which follows after withdrawal is to release. We went to Hillbrow police cell to say, no, here is a decision from NPA to say we have to withdraw the charges against the student, release them. They refused. I even went to Captain to say, no, what is the process is now? No one wanted to give me clarity. Up until the investigation officer told me that that decision has been reviewed. I said, by who? Tell me who reviewed the decision. And then, was it reviewed formally or not? I'm entitled to know. I'm telling you, I was never told anything about that. But I was just told that I must go back to court on the next day so that I will hear my matter. So I went and confront the NPA, which are my colleagues. But to my surprise, they said, oh, we don't know anything about this review. This matter was never reviewed, but we receive messages from the higher people. We don't know who are the higher people. And then to say, no, don't release those students. We don't agree with your decision to withdraw. And then I then asked the independency of the National Protection Authority, if ever they made decision and then someone who's not even qualified person can come and say no, review, informally so. And then what's the use of us as lawyers? What's the use of them as lawyers, as fellow lawyers? And then what's the use and the independency of NPA? So there is even issues regarding the independency of some other institutions. But when we are facing that, there's a lot to question now, whether indeed there is independency.
I'm going to have to interrupt you. We're out of time. But in the end of it all, the students were released.
Were released, and then that decision of the NPA, they stick with their own decision, irrespective of whoever wanted to interfere with.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. Ayanda.